Ey, yo te miré caminando sola. La teta bien buena de tus posts, la forma que te mueve me enamora. Pero eres snake.
Hey, what's going on, beanies and beanettes? This is the Two Beans in a Pod show, and you are listening to Bean One. I am Pedro, your host, and I'm accompanied with my lovely, my beautiful, my one and only, Aurora.
Hi.
Say hi to the people.
Hello, people.
Dude, isn't this new?
Yeah, this is very weird.
Is this so weird now? People can actually see what we fucking look like when we talk.
Yeah.
This is the weirdest shit ever. This is season 2. We are super excited. We're launching our very first episode of season 2, and we're now streaming on all platforms. We're streaming on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, we got YouTube covered, we got Instagram TV covered, and if you guys have not been following us during the off season, they've been missing out, right?
Yeah.
What? We've been up
to some adventures. We took some time off. What 4 weeks?
Yeah, we took about 4 weeks off.
We took
full month.
4 weeks off. We took a road trip, which was a lot of fun. We went down south to North Carolina.
Down south to North Carolina.
Yeah, it's funny to say. That was fun.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Except for me getting eaten by bugs. That was like the only downfall of our trip. Mm-hmm. Other than that, it's a beautiful place. It was great to see our friend. Yeah. A
lot of great scenery. I was actually surprised by I didn't realize down there it's so mountainous.
It's so green.
So green, yeah. Very different from what we're used to in Arizona. So that was a lot of fun, actually. We hate bugs. We're not very outdoorsy people.
We love the outdoors, but I don't think the outdoors loves us because we always come out just messed up.
It was terrible. You look like it was just warts everywhere. It was
it was disgusting.
I
was full of bites, and it was gross.
And do you remember how we ended our last episode? I was just thinking about this. So for those of you guys that aren't following us, you guys should be following us. Number one, we're on we're at with the number 2 beans with the Z, of course, at the end, because we got to spruce it up around here. Mm-hmm. But you can find us on all platforms: Instagram, Facebook, and so we've been posting about our adventures. And what was really funny is before we ended season 1, we were like, all right, we're gonna get out there. Quarantine's almost done, and we're gonna get out there, have some adventures, big old fun. It's gonna be a blast, right? And so we started off pretty good. We did our little road trip to Charlotte, right? And then in the middle of all of that chaos, we start finding out holy shit, world's on fire kind of situation. There's quarantine happening all over again, all that kind of stuff, right? So a lot did not go as planned. But to shine a little bit of light because we are going to kind of touch a little bit on some of those heavier subjects, but to kind of shine a light on some of the stuff that we did get to do, because we did want to at least enjoy the summer here. We don't as you guys can probably not, but it's cloudy as shit out here.
Yeah, today's a bad time to talk about good weather.
Yeah, this is not the good weather episode. This is not where we flash out how beautiful it is in the summer here, but typically it is, and we got to count those days. So we actually got out. What was one of the things that we did out here? We went to
the beach. We had a beach day earlier this week. Beach, I know it's kind of weird because it's Lake Michigan, but it's like a beach. Mm-hmm. That was fun. So yeah, we're trying to make the best of the good days that we have with good weather. So yeah, I mean it's been fun considering the current climate of our country.
Yeah. Aside from all the mayhem going on, there is a little bit of sun in there in between, right? So one of the things that we've been up to is we wanted to spruce up how we interact with you guys, which is why we decided to do the whole video thing. And we were like, how can we interact with our fans more, get more engagement? So we decided, we were like, hey, why don't we start giving shit away? People love getting shit.
People love free shit.
Yeah, people love free shit. I love free shit. I'm like, who doesn't love free shit? So we ran a little competition this week to give away some free shit, right? So what we were going to be giving away was 40 by 60 custom print canvas from our boy Freddie the photographer over at F&J Productions. You guys can find him on Instagram. It's at Freddie the Photographer and at F&J Productions, exactly as it sounds. And, he hooked us up with a freaking beautiful canvas, which is actually sitting right behind us. We have a post about it on our social media. I don't want to fuck with the camera, so I won't zoom out. But you guys can definitely check it. It took fucking forever to get the right angle. So one of these like custom built, camera tripod things, whatever. So we don't want to fuck with that shit. But you guys can check it out on our social media. It was really it was awesome running the campaign. We got a lot of like fun feedback. Some people actually like posted pictures with their dads. So do you want to announce who actually ended up winning our?
Can we get a drum roll?
Ooh.
Wait, mine drum roll isn't cool enough.
No, yours was like a motorboat. I don't know. I don't know anybody motorboating before. Like you don't ever see anybody like bingo in and be like, all right, coming up. Like, no, it's not.
All right, I thought that's how a drum roll sounds.
All right, ready? Drum roll.
Our first winner of our first ever giveaway for the 2 beans is Izzy
Ben Z. At Ismail B23.
Probably our biggest fan.
Our biggest fan. You actually deserve it.
He shows us love every day.
Swear to God, it was totally random. And I'm not gonna lie. So we did one of those like random number generator things, right? Mm-hmm. And it like landed on him, and I was so salty because like I remember he sent the message and he was like, I'm totally gonna win that shit, and I was like, nah, he's not.
And he did. He manifested
and he did. That was fucking crazy. I was like, God damn it. I was like, so congratulations, Izzy, bro. We appreciate the love that you show us all the time. We can't wait. We're gonna hit you in the DMs, and we'll be sending you this 40x60 custom canvas, bro. Can't wait to see it posted up, and tag us obviously when you post it on the social media. We want to see it. But that's kind of like what we're on track. Like this was actually your idea. Like what kind of inspired you to want to give shit away for free? Because I got to check my banking account first.
Yeah,
I got to check it into savings.
I guess I should have checked our account first before we start giving away stuff. No, but we were just trying to find a way on how we can be more interactive with our followers and what can we do to just give something away to our communities. So this is a good start.
Yeah.
So we'll keep it coming. We have more giveaways, and each giveaway is going to be different. We're going to be giving away different things. So just stay tuned.
Yeah. I think one of the big things that like right now we're starting to realize as we start developing our shows, like, we want to like obviously spread a little light of comedy because that's who we fucking are. Like we're the 2 beans, baby. That's what we do. But the other thing too is we do want to kind of like talk about some like more serious subjects, because like one thing that happened immediately when we came back from Charlotte was, you got the text message.
What happened when we were in Charlotte?
Well, yeah, it happened while we were in Charlotte, and we had planned to stay there a little bit longer. Sorry to our friend down south, Lorena Aguilar. We couldn't stay a little bit longer, but it is what it is. We had to get back, and you got the text message. You wanna tell them what happened?
Well, if we're talking about like the protest, it's not a text message. You got the text message, and it was like a whole like community of people, like literally on this group, like within minutes. It felt like. So I guess the way we found out, like, with the whole break on the protests and how everything happened is I got a text message that saying that our city was on lockdown that weekend, and we're like, what do you mean it's on lockdown? And then we started, going online and figure out what was going on. And that's when we started realizing that there was protests being organized all over the country in response to the unfortunate death of George Floyd. And that kind of obviously made us cut our vacation short. And we came back home, and then we tried to do what we could within our community. So we try to get involved with the protests. We try to, raise awareness through our platform. So as much, like you said, as much as we want to try to make the show light and, have a fun twist to it, it's also kind of hard to avoid the news, the events that are surrounding us, which are very important events, that we can't just turn a blind eye to.
Yeah.
So, did you want to talk
I
about
mean,
more about
it feels like there's a certain kind of like unspoken responsibility when you have certain privileges, right? And I think that was like one of the big things that for us was like a wake up call, right? It's like, hey, listen, like we've experienced our fair share of injustices ourselves, right? But we do have certain privileges where we don't constantly have to face certain fears that, you know, our Black community had to face. And it took, unfortunately, like actually being in that crowd, like, because we actually cut our vacation short. We were like, fuck this. Like, we're going to go and we're going to protest. We're going to go support our community because, like, this is where we live. You know what I mean? Like, we got to do something about it. So we came down here, or up here?
We drove up here.
Down here? Up here? I don't know. We drove back up here, whatever. So we came back up here immediately and we wanted to get into the like seeing what it's actually about, because like the first thing that we saw obviously is like the media is like, oh, there's looting and riots and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, there was some of that shit going on. But I mean, if you dig a little bit deeper, like you find out that it was really just like pockets, isolated incidents and people that probably weren't meant to be there, right? Like people that weren't part of like the peaceful protest arrangements. You know, there's a lot of other crowds that were kind of joining in.
They're just taking advantage of the situation to cause chaos.
Exactly. And so we wanted to see that for ourselves because we never want to be the type of people like you've actually taught me this. Like I learned this from you is like, you don't want to judge until you actually get your ass in there and you see what it is. Because you actually had experience before with Mecha, with doing like protesting and things like that. And I'd never like been exposed to that kind of like crowd before. And I was like, oh, that sounds crazy. I would never want to do that. But you know, we get in there and it's a totally different vibe. Like people are there, like they're frustrated, right? It's a little hard to talk about, right? So they're frustrated and it's like, yo, we want our voices to be heard and that's it. Yeah. Right. So we started thinking, we're like, all right, well, let's use our fucking platform, right? Like we have this like microphone thing where people can fucking hear us. And it's like, all right, well, let's like let it be heard, because like you hear all the bad shit all the time. But dude, what kind of gave me an aha moment this week? I shared this with you. Remember that History Channel article that I was talking about like the U.S. economy back in like the 1800s? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I was reading this on the History Channel. I can't quite remember the name of the article, but it was on the website. And basically the overlying theme of the article was describing how the U.S. became the strong economy that it did in the early 1800s, right? And one thing that's obviously known is that in the early stages of the U.S., like we were fighting to like become the fucking superpower of the nation, right? We wanted to like kick British ass, right? So one way to do that is we start selling a lot of like product, and the one thing that we were really good at producing here was cotton, right? And producing it at a really, really, really cheap dollar, which is cheaper than anybody else across the nation. So who became the number one supplier of cotton? Obviously the U.S. And then the story was kind of like blown up since then, right? And you know, while all of that is like taught to us in history class, we were like, I was taught to that. And I was like, oh yeah, duh. Like we used to like do cotton. Like that's how we got fucking rich, right? Mm-hmm. And it never once dawned on me. I'm like, well, you know, while we're doing all that, it's like there's this entire community of people who are getting paid like nothing, right? And they're slaves and they're forced into this crowd, right? And now this goes on for like 150 years, right? And then finally they get freed. But over that course of 100 years, this thing called generational wealth became a thing, right? Because these white dudes that came over that were broke were like, yo, we got to get rich fast. How do we get rich? Oh, why don't we just bring a bunch of African folks, you know, and enslave them and make them fucking work for nothing. And meanwhile, we'll get super fucking rich. And, you know, they didn't count on those African people saying, no, fuck this. We've had enough of this. Right. And we're going to stand up for our fucking rights. Right. And all the while, like, you know, now we fast forward, we're 2020 and like, we're still having this issue of like people not realizing that there's a generational wealth thing that is a real fucking thing. Yeah. And that's, and not just that, but there's a lot of oppression that has occurred even after, you know, 1865 when you know, slavery was abolished, you know, so, that's one of the good things about this,
it's hard to say there's even something good coming out of this, but, the good thing is that these conversations are happening. And I think a lot of people, when they think about the word racism, they only think about a certain type of racism. They don't think about like the different, like, the systematic racism, like how in housing and education and all kinds of aspects of life where racism occurs. The majority of people, I believe, don't think like that. They don't think racism is all over.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people right now are having these very uncomfortable conversations, but they're having them. We're having this dialogue, and we're having this awareness that people need to have, and they need to wake up and say, "Fuck!" Like this shit after 100 and 200 years is still happening, and like something needs to change. Something needs to give. Like it's done. Like we need to change.
Absolutely.
So I think people are tired, and people are all kinds of people are speaking up, which is great. You got obviously the Black community speaking out, but you got people outside of the Black community that are speaking out, so that's great. You've got a lot of allies, and it's one of the good things that's coming out from all this.
Yeah, it's hard to say like there's silver lining, but like the reality is there is some silver lining right now. There's a lot of weird conversations that are happening. We had those with our friends, down in down in North Charlotte or North Carolina, right? So, we had those uncomfortable talks. But listen, like the reality that we got to start realizing is this isn't like a fucking this isn't a pity conversation. That's not what I want. Like people that are listening right now, like I feel like there's always 2 to maybe 3 different trains of thoughts when people hear these types of conversations. It's like the first one is either like, oh, here we go. Here's another pity parade for, like the Black community and things like that. You have those people that are still stubborn, that still don't want to wake up and realize that there is a real oppression that has occurred for hundreds of years to a community that still is existent today, that we still haven't like quite woken up to fight against. But the second type of folks are people that are like, yes, I understand that there's been oppression, but I'm just like, I'm tired of hearing about it, right? Like I don't want another sob story, right? And to those folks, I say like, listen, I get it. There's a lot of sob stories out there, but I want you to just keep tuning in because this is not it. Okay. What this actually is we want to remind folks of one thing, is the U.S. economy became the most powerful economy on the backs of African Americans. And when they got tired of it, they said, fuck this, I'm going to fight for our own freedom, right? They broke free. They withstood like decades upon centuries, right? Hundreds of years of oppression, right? And in the midst of that, the stories that go untold are all the remarkable people that have made insane amounts of change despite being like brought up from a family of slavery, right? So
the adversity they had to face right out the womb.
Exactly. So you tell me who's stronger? A population that got rich off of the backs of people for 100+ years, or the people who were being pushed down for hundreds of years and still fucking found a way to come up on top, right? And I think that's what's more important, and I think that that's what this episode is about. And one thing we want to do is we want to fucking put that shit in your ears and let you know we are badass, right? Minorities, Hispanos, Latinos, African Americans, everybody. We're fucking badass because no matter how oppressed we are, we're still going to come out on top. And we've got a fucking list of some really badass people that we came up with because we wanted to dig deep, right? You were like, I got to come up with some people that we want to highlight. So we want to fucking kick this shit off, right? And listen up because we got some dope stories with some dope people that have done some dope things. And they are great leaders that we need to talk about more often. And, I'm going to let Aurora take it off.
So some of these people that we found online are people that probably I've actually never heard of them in like any of my history classes. Like they're, I guess, hidden figures in history. So I thought it would be cool to talk about people that we normally don't hear about. we always hear about like the great, obviously, and they very well deserved people like Rosa Parks, Harriet Tubman, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. Like they're amazing, beautiful people that created change. But there's also a lot of people that don't get the light or the credit they deserve.
The glory, yeah.
The glory.
The unsung heroes. So
the first one that I wanted to kick it off with, and also because I thought it was, fitting that it's June, Pride Month. Mm-hmm. There is an African American by the name of Marsha P. Johnson, and she was an advocate for gay rights, and I think this was in the 70s, 80s probably. Mm-hmm. And on top of being a really strong advocate for the gay rights community, she was also a co-founder of the program called STAR, which is an acronym for Street Transvestite Action Revolutionaries. And basically this program that she co-founded was a program that would provide food and shelter for homeless youth that were part of like the LGBTQ community, which I think was freaking great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is someone that we should probably want to, educate and learn more about. And I think it's amazing that, not only was she, facing the at that time, being African American comes with it, obviously, obstacles, and adversity, but she was also a drag queen. So there was a lot of obstacles there, adversity that she had to face, and that didn't like slow her down. Like
unfazed.
She continued with her advocacy. She continued being a role model within the gay community. Like she didn't let anything bring her down, and those are the type of stories that we should focus on a lot, and find some inspiration. Yeah,
definitely, dude. Like I can't even imagine like the amount of scrutiny she was probably under during that time. You said this was like probably like 70s?
I believe it was 70s, 80s.
80s time frame? Jesus, yeah. Like a lot of people don't realize, dude, that's only like, what, 50 years ago?
It wasn't that long ago.
But it is hella different, man. Like some of the shit that, like, just turn on the TV, like watch a movie from like the 70s and hear some of the shit that they talk about. It's insane.
Yeah. And a lot of people think like, racism was so long ago. And then you look at the movies, you start researching and studying, and then you look at the years, you're like, wait, my parents were born.
Right.
Like my parents were living through that. Like it actually
like I think my dad was in high school during that time.
It's not that long ago. It really isn't. But yeah, that was my first one. Marsha P. Johnson. Marsha P.
Johnson. Yo, shout outs to her. Listen, on the kind of talk of remarkable people that do great economic things for this country, two people that I really want to shout out. I don't know if you ever do this thing where you're like go down the wormhole, right, of like the History Channel or whatever. But I started clicking on links and shit.
Oh, you just take you from one link to another.
Yeah, I did that thing. But what I was actually on the search.
I do that with shoes and clothes.
More important subject matters. But one thing that I was searching for actually was a story that I remember that I learned about not too long ago. It was Black Wall Street. Right, so it took place out in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and this was during a time where I want to say this was like the 1860s or so, something. Not 1860s. I'm sorry, like 1880s or something like that. It was late 1800s. Do you need me to fact? You might need to fact check me. Like, listen, like what I want to be kind of noted here is that this isn't exactly like fact, like per
We're
verbatim.
Not experts
yes,
here.
yes. Like this is consider this about equivalent to like drunk history. So basically, like the story goes, there was a street. The street was named Greenwood Avenue in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I do remember this, and it was one of the first ever like self-made towns that became very wealthy. That was like primarily all African American. So it was founded by two remarkable men, O.W. Gurley and J.B. Stratford, and these guys were both very successful entrepreneurs. Like already, they were already like spokespeople that were like leaders and teaching people like how to build wealth and finance experts and things of that nature. And so their thought process was, let's build a community that that basically we only do business with African Americans, right? And you might think to yourself, well, like, that's racist as fuck, right? And it's like, not necessarily. Because, again, we talked about the 150 years that white men were able to build a generational wealth for their families, right? So 100 whatever years, I don't even know how many years it was. But they got a head start, obviously, from African American folks. And so to try to like make up that difference, what these economic like experts learned was that, listen, like we've got to start trading our money like within our communities, because at that time, like every dollar that an African American would earn, it was like 97 cents of that would go out of the community. Like they would only keep 3 cents like circulating in that community. So it's like, how do you build wealth amongst your people when it's like you just constantly give money to white-owned businesses? Yes, exactly. And it's like, you've got to start feeding the African-American business owners that are trying to like push money back into the community, right? So they started opening commercial spaces, apartment buildings, whole like luxury, beautiful, beautiful places, like nothing that's ever been seen before. And they called it Black Wall Street, right? And it started producing the most amount of millionaires that the U.S. had ever seen in like a single place, right? Well, naturally what happens is, of course, neighboring communities that are all white were like, yo, why are these African Americans getting, you know, they used a different word back then, I won't use it now, but, you know, why are these fools like getting richer than us? Because at that time, like they were like broke, right? Like they didn't understand economics. They were just kind of like relying on, you know, US taking care of them. So what would any rational person do if someone next to you is getting richer than you? They rally up the troops and they say, we're going to burn this motherfucker to the ground, right? So literally like a scene from the fucking movies, they start torching buildings, killing hundreds of people, hundreds of African Americans.
Was this taught in school for you?
It was not taught in school. Here's the fucking kicker. After they burned everything to the ground, the media, the news, like the newspapers, all of that, they were paid off to never, ever talk about it.
That's crazy.
Until like the early 90s, I think it was, that somebody found some article. I don't remember exactly when, but somebody somewhere was able to find some artifact, some remnants of that incident, and was able to start telling the story. One thing led to another. And now, you know, you can find it on the History Channel. They have a whole, just look up the Tulsa Black Wall Street massacre. And it is insane, man. Like, these are the types of stories that we got to like think about, that, you know, even through all of that, like they burned this town to the ground.
Wow.
You know, we don't like, you don't see black people just going out in the streets and being like, we can't, like, we want to shoot these fuckers down and we want to burn their, like, nobody does that. No. Like, we just want to be like free, equal, right? Like, they just want to be like equal. And it's like, that's the shit that's like, how the fuck do you fight that level of stubborn, right? Of just ignorant, right? So I think that, you know, one thing that is like important to shine a light on is the fact that like these guys had the vision to say, listen, the way we lift our people up is we got to get wealthy as fuck. And one thing I'll tell you right now, people, is like, if we come together and we start creating unique commerce, as in doing business only with our minority groups, right? Only with African American businesses, only with local, Latino-owned business, you know, only local Asian American business, like only local minority businesses. Guess what's going to happen, guys? Like, this is going to boost our people. And that's the shit that people need to be talking about. Not so much just like the stuff that we're doing out on the street, but it's like, how do we do it, right? Yeah. Not just what we want, but the how, right? And this is just one of those fundamental things. And like, big shouts out to those guys. I think everybody that is listening should go check that article out. They're amazing people that did, wonders. And we need to, learn from history and start doing that again. So. Yeah.
No, that's a insane story.
Yeah.
I definitely want to read more about it. So for my next historical figure, it's actually an Afro-Latina.
Ooh.
Yeah. Her name is
Celia Cruz?
Celia.
Sorry.
I did think about her. She's amazing. No, but this one, her name was Maria Elena Moyano. And some of the articles she has Delgado also added on there. And then others, she just was known as Maria Elena Moyano. But basically, she was Peruvian, and she was a Peruvian activist. And she started at a very young age, doing a protest, advocating, being a spokesperson. I think the article that I read said that she started in her teens. So she joined.
Wow.
I know. She joined
Teenager.
various groups, especially she joined some women, some like feminist groups in Peru. And these groups, they had a lot of projects, and these projects included like generating income for families, providing food for children, and then also they focused on improving like basic education for kids. Now, this was a time where it was a country where people didn't really speak out. It was kind of frowned upon if you had like a voice or an opinion about something. And two, she was a woman. So she was an Afro-Latina, So that was also played against her. So while during her career, working towards, bettering the life of, women and children, she received like a lot of death threats, and she was very open, very, very outspoken. So she received a lot of death threats. And I read that she was actually assassinated in her 30s. Oh my God. Very young, very young. But she's seen as a hero in Peru, actually. Yeah. So she was a strong woman, and she started young, and she kept going. And that's crazy that even receiving all these death threats and, all this, opposition from powerful people, like she didn't care. She kept going. She wasn't scared. And her desire to do good for her people was way bigger than fear of losing your life, which is just like amazing. Yeah.
What do you think motivates somebody like that?
God, I'm sure there's a lot of things that motivate people, like there's just, I don't know.
Like that's outside.
I wish,
That's crazy.
We need more people like that.
Yeah.
We need more people like that.
Absolutely.
And more people that do these type of things need to be given like that light that we're doing right now, like highlighting them, because to a lot of us, sometimes when there's certain goals or certain different things that we want to do or say, we're scared, or, we feel like there's an obstacle that we can't overcome. But then you read these stories and you're like, holy crap, like this is a time where like these people had obstacles that they didn't even care about. Like they were just going to continue, with their mission, and whatever it took, they were ready for it. And that's just insane. That's insane, and that's crazy, and that's very admirable, and we need to continue, showcasing these people.
And the crazy part is they're average folks. Yeah. Nothing.
No one's like, rich here. No one. They all come from humble beginnings.
And that's the whole point, is that.
And maybe that's where motivation comes from. Like, where you seeing, your surroundings, it's a boost. It's like, I want something better for myself and for my people. Yeah.
And that's the whole point, man, isn't it? It's like what people, we say like, oh man, all these guys in power and da 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 da. It's like the 1%, the 1%. And it's like, has anybody realized that like, if the 99% just came together, we could do some shit.
Oh yeah. You could be it's like, powerful AF.
And all these people that have these remarkable stories, like that's where they come from. They come from humble beginnings, and it's like, you know what? No matter where I come from, I'm gonna be resilient, and I'm gonna fight, and I'm gonna do what I believe in, right? So that's remarkable. That's a great story. One guy that I want to shine a light on here, that this is actually kind of a unfair story that happened here, but this guy's name is Louis Latimer, and
excuses if we're butchering any of these names. We're hopefully we're not, but
I think we're good. I think I got this. I don't know. Louis Latimer, I'm pretty sure is how you say his name. So Louis Latimer was he was born. His father was a fled slave in the early 1800s, right? So I think Louis Latimer was born in like the 1860s, 1870s, and during this time, so this one is the one that was actually 1860s. I was confusing the other story with
Black Wall Street.
Yeah, Black Wall Street. I think that one was like 1920s. Yeah, that's what it was. There we go. All right. So, anyways, so this is 1860s. I got the right decade now, the right time frame. So, at 16 years old, this dude signs up for the Navy, the U.S. Navy, so that he can fight in the Civil War. 16 years old.
That's crazy. His
dad fled slavery, made it up to Boston, raised the kids there. What ended up happening was, he was wrongfully accused of some crime, and he was able to escape. But then there was like another trial happening during the same time, and he was just scared that he was going to go back to slavery. So something happened where the guy disappeared. I don't know the details, but that's kind of long story short. Dad was not in the scene during Lewis Latimer's young age. At the so he had to provide for the family like young, like we're talking like 8, 9, 10 years old.
Child.
Yeah, as a child. So 16, signs up for the fucking Navy, and fights in the Civil War. Obviously, like wins, right? And now as a free man, he starts to study with guys like Thomas Edison, which that's kind of like me paraphrasing a whole lot of shit that happened in between, stuff. Yeah. But, somehow this guy ends up, meeting with Thomas Edison. And Thomas Edison at the time was working on a little known thing called the light bulb. And,
kind of important.
Yeah, I think
use
so.
It quite a bit.
I don't know. Somebody needs a light bulb somewhere. Hey, quick joke. How many, never mind. It was a bad joke. I was going to say, how many Mexicans does it take to change a light bulb?
Oh, God.
Just one.
Talking about implicit biases here.
That's awful.
Cutting that
I'm allowed to say that because I'm Pedro. So, anyways, so the dude's helping Thomas Edison with the light bulb, and so Thomas Edison discovers the light, right? And so like the light bulb fucking flickers on, and everybody in the town goes fucking nuts.
Right.
Wow. They're like, yo, this fucking guy's a genius. He just discovered light. The only problem was that motherfucker only stayed on for like 5 minutes. So it was like a little longer than his sex life, but not quite good enough to keep the lights on. You know what I mean? So then comes Lewis Latimer.
It's those light bills. He was watching out for them.
Yeah, exactly. He wanted to keep the bills low. So then Lewis Latimer comes along, and he's like, yo, if you put this thing called a filament, you can make it last longer, right? And Thomas Edison's like, what the fuck is this filament thing, right? And then Lewis Latimer's like, dude, I'm
sure it went exactly like that.
It went exactly like this, right? So he's like, I just discovered this thing, and you can put this in the bulb, and now when you like get the spark, the filament will hold the spark, and it just like it lasts longer. It keeps it on. So that's how fucking light bulbs work, right? And Thomas Edison was like, oh, that's fucking genius. I can't wait to tell the town about it, right? And so he tells the fucking town about it. And he's like, I just discovered this filament thing, right? Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's funny. I was like, that's just like when Christopher Columbus discovered America, right? And just like,
although there was already people living here.
Yeah. Just like,
no, this guy just, and let's just create a holiday for him.
Yeah. So Thomas Edison gets Thomas Edison gets the fucking award for the light bulb thing, and then poor old Lewis Latimer, no one ever fucking talked about him until just right now, the two beans, I'm sure. So.
Yeah.
That's the kind of shit that we talk about. Lewis Latimer, you're a damn champion, and we need more people like you, but now let's make sure that we get the credit for it, right? So let's not let Thomas Edison get the credit for the future light bulbs.
Yeah, sorry Tommy. So to just kind of, round it out. Round it out? Is that a thing?
I think it's rounded up.
Round it up.
I don't know. To wrap it up. I think wrap it up.
That's what I meant. To wrap it up.
We're going to get there.
When you say things in your head, they sound great. You're like, oh, that's how it's supposed to sound. And then you say it, and you're like, wait, that is not how it's supposed to sound.
Yeah, that's not how it was supposed to sound. But, we got there.
To wrap it up. I think it's, only fitting to acknowledge the efforts that the Black Lives Matter movement has done over the last, I think they've been around for a little over 10 years or so. Their efforts are just, they've been amazing. They're creating change. They're creating awareness. They're doing so much within the Black community. And I don't know if a lot of people even know who the founders of BLM are, but it's 3 women.
I don't know.
under the age of 40 that started this movement.
Wow.
I'm going to attempt to say their names here. So first one's Alicia Garza. The second one is Opal Tometi. Sorry. I think I said it right. And then the last one's Patrice Kohlers. So these three women, these three powerful women started the BLM movement. And I was reading, I'm not even going to go into each one of them because their portfolio of things that they've done is fucking amazing. Like the level of advocacy and the level of involvement they have within their communities is just on a whole different level. It's such a young age too.
Yeah. You said all under 40?
They're all under 40. I researched that. I think the oldest is 39 and two of them are 36.
Wow.
Like it's crazy like how young and how powerful and empowering these women are. I did see, and I have to point it out because we are from Arizona. Opal is actually, I believe, born, but she was raised in Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh, no way.
She was, yeah. And
represent?
Yeah.
602?
She's involved with a lot of communities out there, a lot of coalitions. And one of the things that came up was that she did some work to fight the SB 1070 bill. I don't know, that was years ago in Arizona.
Wow.
I don't know exactly. I don't remember the details of the bill, but it was it had to do with racial profiling at the time. So it was a very.
So I think at that time it was when like Arpaio was allowed to like stop you, right, and just be like, "What's your citizenship?" Like if you were brown or had like a good tan.
And I think that's what the SB 1070 bill has something to do with that.
Yeah.
But I found it very interesting that she's a fellow Arizonian. But yeah, kudos to these three women. They're very powerful women, and they're doing great things to help their communities. So I think that it goes without saying that we admire these women and
absolutely,
and we will continue to fight the fight, and we'll continue to support their cause.
And you know what, man? Like the Black Lives Matter movement is like it's a global thing now.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
it's huge,
yeah.
and I think that like. If you're just kind of like shutting it away and things like that, like listen, I understand people that are like all lives matter, right? Like I think what they're trying to say is like everybody matters.
I don't understand.
And I think they're trying to say no. Like I honestly think like people that say all lives matter, like they literally just want to like
I don't
say,
think they can fully understand when they say that. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
and I don't think that they understand that like when people say Black Lives Matter. No one's saying Black Lives Matter more.
One's saying only Black Lives Matter.
I will proudly say Black Lives Matter, and I don't feel less than any Black American.
Exactly. Yeah.
I feel a brotherhood with and sisterhood, of course. And so it's like when someone is down and saying, "Hey, I need help," you don't say, "Well, yeah, I need help too."
Exactly.
No, you say, "Hey, what can I do for you?"
Yep.
And that's what Black Lives Matter is doing, is saying, hey, listen, we are a community that is trying to fight for change. We need help, and we need like to come together as a community, right? Latinos, whites, Asians, blacks, like everybody needs to come together and start fighting like the actual problem in this country, which is, this like cancer that we have of racism, of systematic racism, in what is our U.S. economy, our education system, in our law enforcement system.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of folks don't even know, like, you actually don't have to do a whole lot to become a police officer. Like, I could sign up and probably knock it out before the year ends, and I'll have a fucking badge on my chest. Like, while also having a full-time job.
That's wild.
You know what I mean? So, like, that is a problem. Like, I'm not a trained fucking police officer. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I shouldn't be out there enforcing the fucking law. Like, and not to say, like, I would do any violence or anything, but it's just, like, I don't know the law very well.
You would expect a more rigorous training to be able to enforce the law.
Like, I don't, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to memorize fucking all the rights and shit like that from here to the end of the year, but, I'm pretty sure I'll pass that little fucking test, and that's a problem. And I think that everybody needs to come together and say, hey, listen, like, it's not a problem to me. I understand it's a problem to you, and I'm willing to help. Yeah. That's it. And if you're in a spot where you're like, you know what, I just don't want to deal with it because, like, I've got my own set of problems. Like, I got to fucking get my car maintenance next week, and I got, like, I don't know. I got, like, a box of diapers that's, you know, like I gotta, like, I don't know, like if you're thinking about those problems, like I get it, like we all got those problems, but it's like we can fit a problem that matters enough to say, listen, I'm gonna live my life at least knowing that I fought for something that's worth something.
Right.
And I think that's a fair ask. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
And for everybody that's listening, that's probably like, why the fuck did these fools go on for like 30 minutes just talking about, you know, all of this stuff that's been done, you know, in Black history in America and all this and that? It's to once again remind everybody that it doesn't fucking matter how much you want to keep our people down. It doesn't fucking matter how many like head starts you get ahead of us. We're always gonna fucking catch up, and we're always going to pursue our own happiness and fight for what we believe in. And that's what we're trying to do here. So, with that being said, this is Bean 1.
Bean 2.
And we out this motherfucker. Peace.